I've seen you're using a different finger because you completely mutilated the other one. Now let it hang first before you go instinctively, and then from the base, just try to.
So I normally would like press real hard, so now I'm just gonna do a touch.
Yeah, that's good.
We're good.
Stop. Yeah. And then as you put this in, you want to make sure it gets through all three of them. Why don't you go ahead and do that? Awesome. And this is the keto. There's only 3 versions of these meters out there, and you can't get them at the local store. This is the Nova Max. There's also what's the other one?
Oh my gosh,
7.6. So
that is amazing. That's the highest I've ever tested ever. Wow, that is impressive. All right, so Frank, let's explain what's going on.
You might find that you need half of what you just had.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't need anything. You're well off on the diet. But if you wanted to give that extra cognitive boost, extra word retrieval, you might be fine with half of that.
Sure.
I mean, 7.6 versus 4.5.
John, we see this in the frame. 7.6. Yeah. That is really amazing. Cheers. All right. Hey friends, it's Mike Mutzel with High Intensity Health. Thanks so much for tuning in. Today we're going to test our ketones and talk about the differences between different types of ketone testing, blood glucose testing, and the difference between exogenous ketone types. So there's beta-hydroxybutyrate salts, there's diesters, and we're going to talk about that with Fran Llosa. He's the you can find him over at KetoneAid.com. So
thanks for having me.
A lot of stuff. Thanks for coming on. It's great to be with you.
Nice to meet you.
So
first, let's do a baseline. Let's take your ketones first. We can actually give some tips on how to take your ketones. Some people actually do it incorrectly.
Yeah.
And since we've been doing thousands of pricks to test the ester, we found, hey, what happened? Yeah, that person squeezed and his number changed. So we can go over, the best way to take it.
Totally. I'm guilty of that, like trying to get the blood.
Yeah, you're not supposed to do that. And,
good tip.
So this is the free pricker that tends to come with some of these machines. Even at the strongest setting, I can't get deep enough.
Yeah.
Some people have even taken off the top and just jab themselves. Then these are like these one-off prickers that have different depths. The yellow one is deeper than the blue one. I tend to go deeper so I can get a good, nice bolus of blood so that I'm not, just squeezing really hard and then you get a bunch of other stuff in there.
Yeah.
So you want to wash your hands first. We've already done that.
Yep.
And then I'm gonna, let my arm hang down, do it standing up. I'm gonna take off the end right here. And then I'm gonna have the meter ready and the strip ready. This meter turns on the moment that you put the strip in, but I don't like to put it in too early because then it can time out, then you get an error.
Yep.
So going down the second finger here on the side.
Are we testing glucose or ketones?
Right now we're gonna test ketones. So I let it hang a little bit, squeeze a little bit, get a nice bolus without going to the tip and doing a huge squeeze. So something like that. And then I'm gonna put in the strip. And then it sucks up. It goes up this little strip here. It has to go past the 3 dots. Yep. And once it's gone past the 3 dots, it then gives you 10 seconds.
Mine normally beeps when it's counting, but it's a different device.
So 2.5 is my baseline, which is way too high. I haven't taken any esters.
That's good, Frank.
Yeah, I guess I had a pretty good night. And I haven't eaten, and it's, what time is it now?
About 11,
11 o'clock. Haven't eaten today yet, so.
Good.
2.5 baseline.
Yeah.
And then, do you want to try it now?
Sure, let's do it.
So you can do it yourself?
So this prick's on here. Sorry, I didn't totally watch.
So you want to peel off the?
Oh, this is the strip.
The stopper. It's the stopper. Yeah.
Yeah. Got it. Okay.
Twist.
Twist
the prick.
Okay.
Yeah. Great.
Okay.
And then you want to get your. Nope, you already blew it. So this one's now shot. So it's very easy to make mistakes. So that's why we're doing it.
Yeah.
So
right,
you want to pull it off.
Okay.
And then keep this. This is the spring loader, the one-time spring load. So you want to do it yourself.
Okay.
And find this side right here of the second finger. That's the most soft. You can sometimes give it a little bit of pressure right there.
Okay.
So push in. Good.
Got it.
Now let it. No, don't do that. So you don't want to do you don't want to do the immediate squeeze.
Yeah.
Because
this one's deeper than the one I'm used to at home.
Yeah.
All right. We have enough blood that we can do something
Yeah,
with
you can
this.
just do it straight with that.
Cool.
But you also so you don't want to squeeze it at the end, and get your strip ready. Let's see what happens here.
Wow, a lot of blood. That never happened. That strip is where that poker's a little deep. More. Better than what I'm used to. You know what? I didn't get a bolus.
See, if you don't get a bolus, no matter how much blood you get,
It's turning into a mess. There we go. There we go.
See, it's hard.
There we go. Maybe I take too much fish oil, huh? Look at that.
So you're 0.6.
Okay.
So that's your baseline. All right.
We tested our blood ketones, 2.6.
2.5 is my baseline.
Okay. I was around 0.6, right?
Yeah, yours was 0.6. So now we're going to drink 40 grams of ketone ester for you. And that should take you to about 3.5, maybe 4.5, depending on how it works for you.
Yeah.
As far as the taste, I've got to warn you, it does not taste good. I think you've tried it once before, but there are a few tips to make it a little bit better. So one, you chill it. Second, you chug it, and then you immediately chase it with sparkling water. Not regular water, not warm water, sparkling cold water. And when you drink it, have this already here, and then immediately drink just 2 sips. You don't have to drink half the can. We've had people try that, and then suddenly they're spitting up sparkling water.
Right.
Just chug it and a couple sips. If for some reason you can't take it all down in one gulp, that's fine. Just do the sip in between. And that just washes it down like scrub bubbles. And we also gave you the raw version, so you can kind of tell us how you think, how it compares. So let's open this up.
Okay.
And I'm actually going to drink one as well. I only have drank it twice in the last 2 years I've been doing this.
Wow.
It's so rare that I'm like, why waste it on me?
Sure.
So I figured it'd be a good occasion to try it myself.
Now that preserves it, that extra seal.
It's just an extra level of, that's how the bottle came.
All right, down
So
the hatch.
I'm going to do this one,
and then chug it at one.
Yeah, and then have this already ready.
This is flavored or raw?
This is
same stuff.
more. It's flavored.
Gotcha.
Flavored, but less flavor. Less flavor. All right.
Okay, here we go. Cheers. All right.
See, I immediately chased it. You're like savoring it.
Well, I really wanted to notice the difference because I did taste the unflavored version. That's a lot better. A lot easier to take down. It
Right, and if you had chased it with that, it'd be, not bad is the goal. Not great. It's not going to be Gatorade, but, good enough.
So we took...
Let me start the watch so we know, timers will test at like the 15 or 20 minute mark, and then again at the 30, 40 minute mark.
Perfect.
And then if we're still hanging around, 2 hour mark, see where it's gone.
Yeah. Well, I would love to talk specifically kind of the difference between just the BHB salts and the diester. But since you were talking about testing...
there's the BHB salts, the diester, and then the ketone monoester. So we have to differentiate between all 3 of those.
Okay,
yeah.
let's do that then. Yeah.
Okay, so the BHB itself, the ketone, beta hydroxybutyrate, also known as BHB, is acidic. So when something is acidic, you have to balance it. You have to balance the pH. So one solution is to do what's called a ketone salt. So you add a bunch of salt load, whether it's sodium, potassium, magnesium, or calcium, to raise the pH so that your body can take it. The problem is the amount of salt load that you'd have to consume is almost the equivalent of a restaurant shaker of salt. So that 40 grams would be, fill that up with salt and chug it. It's just not possible.
There's other complications associated with that.
Other complications, you get diarrhea, too much sodium or potassium. I understand with the ketogenic diet, you need more salt, and I'm all for that. But the amount of salt that you have to take is just off the charts. You just can't do it. And Dr. Veach, when he was first working with this stuff 10, 15 years ago, he came up with the ketone salts, the D version, which we'll get into. But he just found that there wasn't enough energy created, so he scrapped that and started all over again to head down the path of the ketone ester, which is different. So with these salts, they're on the market now. Some companies decided, well, if you combine a ketogenic diet and salts, maybe then you can move the needle and get from 0.3 to 0.6 or 0.6 to 0.9, and it has been useful for some people.
Sure.
But the ester takes you from 0.5 to 5.0 into the level of therapeutic ketosis. So it's a night and day different product. It just happens to be that it's wildly expensive to make. And
why is that?
The process, it's a 3-step process, and one of the reasons that it's expensive is that each step of the way you lose 80 to 90% of the product. So you start with 1 liter, and then after the first step you've got 100 mLs. Next step you've got 10 mLs. So it just drives up the price through the roof. The second reason is every molecule has a positive and negative, like a battery. The D version and the L version. So you might have seen L-tryptophan or L-dopa, these vitamins that have the L on it. Sometimes the body takes the L, sometimes the body takes the D. With the ketones, it's the D form. So what Dr. Veach has done is isolated just the D form because that's all your body can use. And that just exponentially makes the price more expensive. If you were to go onto some chemical labs and ask for the racemic version, it might be $10 for a gram, or even less than that. The non-racemic version, the D form, would be $1,000 a gram. So this right now you could buy at a lab, it'd be $40,000 for what you just drank.
For the D form.
For the D form of the ketone monoester.
That's...
So there's the ketone salts, and they're pretty much all the same. They just mix around whether the sodium is a little bit higher or the potassium's higher. The salt content, for the most part, is the same, with one exception of Keto Blitz, where they found a way to take out half the salt, which is interesting. But most of the products, 90% of the products, are also racemic. So they are the D and the L form. So if they advertise that they're 12 grams of beta-hydroxybutyrate, that is actually 6 grams of D, and the D is the only part that does anything. And some might even say that you burn some D getting rid of the L. So then it's effectively like 5 grams. So this would be like 8 packets of the racemic salts.
Sure.
There's one company, a multi-level marketing company, that has a product that is substantially the D form. So it costs a little bit more, but you can get half the amount of salt because you're only neutralizing the D form. So absent the ester, that would be the best option that's on the market right now.
Cool. Can you mention the name of it?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's Prove It.
Okay.
It's a multi-level marketing company, and they don't really explain that it's mostly D, probably because they've sold 20 million versions of the racemic. So it's kind of like, well, what's all that other stuff you've sold? But that is the one that's more bioavailable, more of the D form. And what they did is, instead of having 12 grams per serving, this one has about 8 grams of D. So it's 40% more D, but less total amount. So the salt load is going to be half as much on a per DBHB basis.
Right.
And you're also asking, why is it so expensive? The other reason why it's expensive is you can take 8 to 10 times more of the ester. So it's not our fault that it's the equivalent of 10 packets of salt. So it's kind of like when you buy a roll of Charmin, then there's one small roll and one mega roll, and one's more expensive. Yeah, but it has 10 times more in it. Right. So that's one factor of 10, and then just the D form, and then the ester process just makes it through the roof. But our company has a provisional patent on a new way to make it that will bring the price down dramatically and actually rival the D ketone salts on a gram per gram basis.
Wow.
It's going to be really confusing for people because it's going to cost more, but you're getting 3 to 4 times more. If you want, go ahead, take a fourth of it, fourth of the serving. But essentially, it's going to be competitive with the D salts.
Right. And we'll talk more about the benefits of the diester.
Right. So the diester, Dominic D'Agostino has a ketone diester, which is acetoacetate is one half of the equation, and DL-1,3-butanediol. So it's also racemic, so only half of it can be used. But acetoacetate is different than beta-hydroxybutyrate, which is normally the ketone that's talked about the most. Acetoacetate is next on the Krebs cycle, so you can take that with the 1,3-butanediol, but in that step, going from beta-hydroxybutyrate to acetoacetate, you lose energy. So it's one step less of energy, and it's racemic, so then you have to take twice as much to get, twice or 3 times as much to get possibly the same effect, but then you're taking too much of that. You're taking too much of the 1,3-butanediol, and so that's why the Dr. Veach version is it can be referred to as the ketone monoester or D-beta-hydroxybutyrate, D-1,3-butanediol, that's the technical name. Ketone ester is a family of potential different versions, and in the next few years we might see 5 or 10 ketone esters, so it's going to get really confusing really quick which one is which.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying, because people do hear the diester, the monoester, the salts, and so I think now they'll have a good idea of the differences there. But then the butanediol in and of itself, that helps with the delivery of the BHB.
Right, so the double whammy that you get with this version is that you get the D-beta-hydroxybutyrate, and then instead of attaching it to a salt, which the salt doesn't help ketones, you're attaching it to D1,3-butanediol. Happens to be that D1,3-butanediol happens to make ketones also. So you're getting the double whammy effect. It's also a slower release because it gets processed through the liver. And then, so you might have something, let's check our time, it's only been 7 minutes. It will slow down, so the D-beta hydroxybutyrate, the first portion will hit your system first, and then the second portion a little bit later, allowing you to have maybe 3 to 4 hours of benefit, as opposed to maybe just 2 hours if you just took the beta hydroxybutyrate.
I see. And so you mentioned some of these companies that are selling the salts, they often pair it with MCT oil.
Right.
Is that kind of why do they do that? What's the benefit there?
So MCT oil, coconut oil there's a C6, which is something you can't eat. The C8 all the way to the C12, it's the length of the chain. The higher the number, the harder the oil is. The lower the number, the more it makes ketones. So the C8 makes ketones. So I can kind of consider that as half of an exogenous ketone, because half of it goes towards your macros as your fat content, but the other half makes actual ketones itself. But again, it's only moving the needle a tiny amount. So if you do the BHB salts, it moves the needle a tiny amount, and then the MCT oil a tiny amount. Cumulatively, you can get higher. But we don't suggest mixing the MCT oil with the ketone ester, because you're going from 0.5 to 5.0. You don't need to go to 0.5 to 5.5. Like it's just not necessary.
Sure.
And there might be some other mechanisms that haven't happened that might limit the benefit of the ester by taking the oil. So it's better to have the ester on an empty stomach, and test your ketones, start on a lower amount, see how it affects you. Some people are more sensitive. They can take a fourth of a serving and have benefit. Other people, especially if you're heavier, because it's usually based on weight, you might need a little bit more.
Okay. Awesome. Let's talk about some of the benefits of exogenous ketones. Like you mentioned, disease states that hit that high millimolar. What are we doing physiologically? What are some of the benefits there?
So we are restricted to sell and market this as a sports drink. So we can talk about what it does to your ketone levels and what it can do for sports performance, but the research is a little bit too early for us to make any claims or speak to what it does to disease. But you took, the ester a few weeks ago. I'd love to hear, what your take was on it.
Yeah. So I took it before YouTube Live. So I noticed like word retrieval, cognition was really, that's one of the reasons that I got interested in a ketogenic diet from playing football and action sports and head trauma. So I noticed a dramatic improvement in word retrieval, cognition, and everything like that. And then I went and trained back and deadlifts and did all that sort of thing. And normally I like to have carbs during that workout, and I took the ester and didn't have any carbohydrates and felt really, really good. So that's what I thought was really interesting.
So with the word retrieval, I don't know if people know what that means. It means, you might pull out a word that you haven't used in 3 years, and you're just like, where did that come from? It just like pulled it from the deep memory. So we've gotten that a lot. It's interesting that you mentioned workout. So I want to explain this drink was actually designed for non-ketogenic people.
Okay.
It just happens to be that ketogenic people know what it is. So they're gravitating toward it, and it's like, wait a second, it's not for you guys, it's for these non-keto people over here. And then you knock on the door of the non-keto athlete, and they're like, what are ketones? It's just like, oh my God, you go take a 2-hour deep dive, call me in the morning. So we actually found with the non-ketogenic people, you have to take carbs as well. So it's a dual fuel. You have to first load up on carbs, the same 1-to-1 ratio. So this one has 40 grams. You would take 40 grams of glucose first. 20 minutes later, you would then take the 40 grams of glucose of the ester. The reason is the ketone ester will lower your blood glucose numbers. So when it lowers your blood glucose numbers, you can't go into a workout with low blood sugar. You're going to get lightheaded, and you just won't have the fast twitch muscles and and that type of energy that you need. So basically, it's swapping one fuel for another, swapping ketones swapping out the glucose and putting in ketones. And you can read places online saying ketones are more energy dense and more powerful, but it's just not something that you can notice an improvement when you're swapping out fuels.
Sure.
But when you take the glucose and your glucose skyrockets 150, 170, 180, and then you take the ketone ester and it brings it back down to baseline, then you're in this like new paradigm of two fuels. And that's when we see people have off the chart
breakthroughs in performance.
PRs.
Yeah.
PRs. And we actually don't even talk about the amount that they PR because it's actually beyond the level of someone being able to bleed. They just like, you lost me. So we'll just say, if your goal is if you're happy with the PR, then great, try it. And then, anything above that is gravy. But we also, so we did try the ester with non-keto athletes by itself, no improvement. And then we had this one athlete who was ketogenic for 2 to 4 years. And I was telling him to take a carb load, and I felt so bad because I respect his diet. And here I am like saying take these gel packs. So we decided to do an experiment of him just doing the ketones. It worked. So it worked with someone that was deeply in ketosis. So then came along, 2 or 3 other athletes. It worked for them that were deep in ketosis. But then we had some tricky people that were in the middle. They're off and on, weekend carb loaders, selectively, or on it for 3 months or 6 months. It did not work. The performance was worse. So what we then found is if you're ketogenic long enough, then at nighttime your body is starting to make glycogen reserves. But it can be, I was saying 9 months, an athlete just told me that's more like 18 months. So anybody that's in the middle, they have to do the pre-carb load in order to have any effect. Now they might take half the amount of carbs, but it just doesn't work by itself. So the protocol is very tricky, and I'm really worried that people just drink the bottle, see all these testimonials and down it. So on the website, we actually put some examples of when it did not work. Yeah. Like here's when it didn't work, here's why, this person had a cheeseburger right before. And then lo and behold, it didn't work. Yeah,
it's so subjective, and this period of what you were talking about, that fat adaptation or keto adaptation is really individual. So my question was, like, if you were going to do a competition, for example, would you train with this or just do it as a one-time thing? Like, is this something that you kind of train metabolic systems?
Yeah, you definitely don't want to take it first time on game day. So we had one person that went against us, took it game day and had to pull out of the race because the protocol is a little bit different if you take it in the middle of the race versus the beginning of the race. And I think what happened is he just went hypoglycemic. Yeah. So he didn't have enough glucose in his system and he had to drop out. So yeah, definitely I would take it on practice and also build up to see how it affects you. But then, once the price comes down enough, there's really little reason to not take it every single day. What it does for recovery, what it does for mental cognition, but just because you might lift more doesn't mean you're necessarily stronger. It's the fuel that's lifting you, not the engine.
Sure.
So, but we don't know yet whether lifting that extra muscle repeatedly will build the engine. I would think it would, but we haven't had enough of the ester to give it to someone for 30 days and say, take this every day and see what happens.
Sure, right. So we don't know all the adaptations that are going on.
Right.
Yeah.
And a lot of people will be doing their own biohacking, experimenting this, with glucose, without, simultaneously. Right now it's a 20 minutes, you have to spread them out 20 minutes. We found that if you take them at the same time, the carbs and the glucose, it doesn't work the same. The carbs and the ketones. So, a lot more research, needs to be done.
Sure. A lot of people are taking ketones for fat loss. What are your thoughts on that?
We don't go into the fat loss. Right now we're focusing on sport. We have asked people in our interviews, how did it make you feel as far as curbing your hunger? We have had some people that said that they are an intermittent faster. They eat once a day, all their calories. The guy's 300 pounds. He eats just at 7 p.m. And he took the ester, had a huge PR, weightlifting, so not endurance. So we can talk about that in a second. Weightlifting. And then he just decided to skip his 1 meal a day. So a lot more research needs to be done in that area. There's a lot of potential. But with the cost right now, I just don't see people drinking it on a daily basis for weight loss.
Sure. Yeah. I was just curious on that because there is some data showing, and I'm all about exogenous ketones for applications, cognition and performance and all that. But I think people are using the ketone salts to mitigate like a bad diet, thinking it'll offset that. And I just wanted to clarify because there's research showing that the exogenous ketones may slow down endogenous fat burning.
Yes, I would love to talk about that. So this is exactly the opposite of what you've heard everywhere. So first of all, the moment that you drink an exogenous ketone, you stop fat burning. And a lot of people don't realize that because they read or see these blog posts, like, dude, you just took exogenous ketones, 40 minutes, you're burning fat right now sitting in the chair. No, you're not. You just stopped any progress that you might have been making overnight. Why? Because the body just got an influx of energy. It no longer needs to find that emergency fuel from your fat. Now, one could counter that and argue, well, 3 hours later, I was less hungry, and then maybe I made more ketones then. Perhaps. But the immediate effect is that it stops. I had one person contact me who was told to take an exogenous ketone from their trainer, and she was doing an overnight fast, running first thing in the morning, and then the trainer says, oh, take the ketone ester or ketone salt right before. And then she was saying, hey, it wasn't working. Why is that? And I said, you were doing so great. You were burning the fat. And you just said, body, stop burning fat, burn this drink, and go for your run. It's just a waste. Another thing I like to say about, ketogenic diet plus ketone salts, does it help you lose weight? Yes. But the difference is a ketogenic diet and clapping your hands also helps you lose weight. Ketogenic diet and everything helps you lose weight. So is it the ketogenic diet or is it, the BHB salts? And the amount of money that people spend with these salts, there's also an investment. They've had studies where you give money to a cause if you don't lose weight, and money is a motivator. So if you're on a ketogenic diet and spending a bunch of money, you better eat less.
Yeah, you're committed financially.
Yeah. So the ketogenic diet is where the holy grail is. Some people use the BHB salts in order to get over that transition period, but a lot of that is the salt intake. My wife, I got her on a ketogenic diet. She hates being in an experiment. She was in the bed in a fetal position. I was Googling what to do, and I gave her a load of salt, and she got over the keto flu. So the BHB salts happen to have a ton of salt.
Yeah.
So is it the salt that's giving you the benefit to get over this, or is it the BHB? Because the BHB is so tiny, 5 grams, 6 grams. That's like, that's nothing. So
how much is our body making per day if we're in ketosis, roughly?
it can make up to 150 grams per day.
Our liver's cranking all that out, BHB.
Yeah, over a 24-hour period, 150 grams.
So 40 grams, that's like a third, roughly.
Yes.
So that's significant. Versus 5 grams, it's kind of like a drop in the bucket. Not quite, but.
If there might be potential where you can actually, with a doctor's advice, you could actually take that up to 3 times a day, that amount. Right. But we will be likely coming out with serving sizes that are 20 grams, because some people might even benefit at the 10 grams, so it's confusing. So you want to start off slowly, but eventually, with your doctor's permission, you could raise the amount, and you'll be testing your blood ketones along the way. You want to be in this range of 3 to 6 millimolars. You don't want to be in the above the 8.0. We find that if you go above 8.0, it's actually too much energy in the system. So then there's like an insulin-like response that the body wants to shut down that extra energy. So that's wasted. So you want to be in that steady zone.
You hit on a really good point, and I think that it gets lost in the conversation. When we measure high ketones, so let's translate millimolars into glucose. No one would brag about having 8 millimolar glucose.
Right.
That would be like, whoa, something's wrong. But we get very excited about having 8 millimolar ketones. They're still energy, they're just different currencies. Right. So when we think about taking a bunch of exogenous ketones or a bunch of MCT oil or a bunch of butter, we don't think that that's energy. We think, we're going to burn that fat for fuel. So do you have any comments here? Because I think it's an interesting conversation that people, they realize, fat's not bad, fat's good.
If you have it's completely different if you have those numbers on a diet versus if you have those numbers on a ketone supplement. So you have to really, you're burning fat when you're on the diet. And when you're on the diet, you also have to discount and not count any MCT oil. So that's kind of an exogenous ketone. So if you're doing your numbers, and I talked to someone the other day and they said, I'm historically 1.0. Well, how much MCT do you take and which kind of MCT? And they were taking the C8, C10 blend. I said, well, that means nutritionally you're really, 0.7, 0.6. So you want to watch out for that. If you have no MCT oil and you're showing a 1.0, that's one thing. But it's a little, not a cheat, but just your numbers are a little bit off. So it's not
true.
It's not true fat burning if you're taking an exogenous ketone or a certain MCT.
Because MCTs are very ketogenic. That's why
they're very ketogenic, but they actually make ketones as well. So half of the equation on a C8, the strongest one, like keto MCT or brain octane, where you can only take a small, maybe a capful of this at a time, and then eventually you can move into the 1 tablespoon. But if you take too much at a time, you will have the runs. They call it disaster pants for a reason. But half of that in the equation makes ketones through the liver, similar to 1,3-butadiene. But it makes ketones, so your numbers will be a little bit artificially high.
Right.
But as far as some people, the other interesting thing is once you're in ketosis for over a year or two, some people find that their numbers are much, much lower.
Yeah.
And I haven't fully understand that. I don't have a science background, so I don't fully understand. But it has something to do with the transporters of those ketones. You're able to use them more efficiently, so they get out of your blood and into your system quicker. But it's very interesting seeing the numbers of people that have been in it for so long, they no longer, pass 2.0. I actually hit 8.0 on a vegan ketogenic diet without even trying, and with some hummus.
Wow.
And how is that possible? Because hummus has carbs. Well, when you have less meat and you're really cutting back on the meat, it's a ratio. So you have the same fats, but then less protein, and so that allowed me to. I think it's a little bit easier on a vegan diet because if you cut out the meat, it gives you a little bit more wiggle room on the carbs.
Yeah, that's really cool to hear. I get that question a lot about keto for vegans, and my wife and I have really scaled back our meat consumption after having chickens. We realized that it's not really totally sustainable to have 4-ounce chicken breasts 3 times a day or whatnot. So
the other thing I like to do with the vegan diet is blend. I love blending. Allows me to put in some oils, and I think you need vegetables. That's one thing I don't like about the ketogenic diet, is that you don't have the massive amounts of greens that I think the body should have. So you can put in the beets. Yes, they have fiber. Yes, they count towards your carb numbers. But when weighing things, I think having those nutrients, I just never have understood the idea of bacon being healthy. Like yes, it has the macros, but something in the back of your head's got to be telling you that charred, super burnt bacon
can't be the healthiest thing.
Can't be the healthiest thing. But that's, I have biases.
Right, me too. We're in the same camp. Plus, it's not good for your microbiome to be devoid of those vegetables. So should we retest? It's probably been 20 minutes or so.
Yeah, we're at 24. Let's see where we're at. I think you should take the blue one this time.
Yeah.
Let's let you do it the whole thing by yourself.
Twist this guy off here.
Yep, without accidentally poking the end.
Yep.
And then let me get this ready. So it's good to let it hang down like that.
Okay. This is awesome, Frank. Good stuff. So pull it back, or we're good?
It's already preloaded. Okay. I've seen you're using a different finger because you completely mutilated the other one. Now let it hang first before you go instinctively, and then from the base, just trying to.
So I normally would press real hard. So now I'm just going to do a touch.
Yeah, that's good.
We're good.
Stop. Yeah. And then as you put this in, you want to make sure it gets through all 3 of them.
Okay.
Why don't you go ahead and do that?
Awesome.
And this is the keto. There's only 3 versions of these meters out there, and you can't get them at the local store. This is the Nova Max. There's also what's the other one?
Oh my gosh,
7.6. So
that is amazing. That's the highest I've ever tested ever. Wow, that is impressive. All right, so Frank, let's explain what's going on.
You might find that you need half of what you just had.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't need anything. You're well off on the diet. But if you wanted to give that extra cognitive boost, extra word retrieval, you might be fine with half of that.
Sure.
I mean, 7.6 versus 4.5.
John, we see this in the frame. 7.6. Yes. That is really amazing.
Now, I think my meter might be very very nice to me. I think it's.
How much more we got on the card? 30.
About 8 minutes.
Oh, cool. Thanks, John.
I've got an SD card too, if you want.
Yeah, we have 2 cards. One needs to flip. Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. So you took 20 grams?
I took also the same 40.
Okay.
And I think my meter might be very polite to me. Let's see what it says.
You're going to be at over 10, hey? Dun, dun, dun.
So it says high.
Wow.
That's why I was saying it was going to be very polite.
Yeah.
That's over 8.0.
Okay.
But there's diminishing, that's not good.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not the ideal place you want to be. I started a little bit higher than I was expecting.
Yep.
So, you want to be steady in the 5.0. Now, my system might kick in and start, pushing it back down and get me back in the 5s. But one of the neatest studies that we did was, not a study, an N of 1 with a biohacker, Bob Troya. He did 1 week of luminosity games, 10 different games. He did it so frequently that his learning effect went away. His baseline just, flatlined, and 2% increase would be considered a good day during that time. He then took the ester and went back and took all the tests, and he was between 10% increase in his games to 30%. Wow. So spatial recognition, all these different games, he just blew them all through the charts. So we're really excited to be able to, focus more on that and do more studies on that front to, prove the efficacy with the brain, not only, athletic performance. And with athletic performance, there's been a lot of talk about it being just for endurance.
Yeah.
We actually found that it doesn't work well for people that are super ultra marathons. So that's the first people we attack, super ultra marathons. But the drink might only last for 2 hours. They're doing this 24-hour run, that doesn't help them, and redosing along the way. First of all, we don't have 10 drinks to give them, And so we found that the sweet spot is races that are 60 to 90 minutes long is the perfect sweet spot. We also found a top-off protocol where we can take it just an hour and a half before the end of the race to give you that second boost where your legs won't have the lactic acid and you'll be on a different gear than everybody else. But then we also found weightlifting. That's not, people don't think of that as endurance.
Right.
So it will not increase your 1 rep max. As far as we know, we haven't actually tested it. One guy said, "That's wrong. Give me another one. Give me another one to try." That's wrong, I promise you.
Yeah.
But when you have 5 reps or more, that's when we've noticed a significant difference. So each individual rep, you have a recovery in between each one. And if that recovery is improved, then the number of reps you can do increases. So we've had some great multiple PRs, and then sometimes a week later, they'll try and do what they did a week earlier, and they're like, "I came nowhere near those numbers." Now, is it a placebo effect? Possibly. We're doing human performance trials right now to prove it out.
Yeah.
We are struggling with the people that want to do the trials because they're used to comparing supplements. They give a glucose baseline and they give supplements. Well, now we're comparing glucose versus ketones, so it's like we can't give glucose along the way, and so we're trying to figure out the exact protocol to prove the efficacy in a laboratory setting.
Yeah. I mean, even if it is placebo, I think most people would take the benefits anyway. It's like, well, mind over matter. We know that the mental state or placebo is strong in drugs as well. So even if part of it is a little placebo, who cares? That's awesome. You can lift more, whatever gets you there. So that's really, really cool.
And some people have had time dilation where it appears that time has slowed down. So being able to retrieve a move faster. You had word retrieval. These people have had retrieval of certain moves while wrestling or doing MMA, where they were pulling out moves that they hadn't done for 3 years and executed it perfectly, just retrieving it out of that bank. But other people, motocross people, that have been able to just slow down time at this adrenaline-filled hyper speed, they can just maneuver just a little bit faster.
Yeah.
One downhill biker said normally they can only see 1 or 2 trees ahead, and he was going 3 or 4 trees ahead, and it was easier to go through. So we're hoping to try it more in golf and tennis as well.
Totally.
Imagine if that tennis ball is coming 5 miles per hour slower.
Awesome.
We had a AA pitcher try it, and it didn't work. Well, he didn't think it worked until we talked about it. He was expecting his velocity to go up. I told him it won't.
Yeah.
And after every pitch, he went, did it go up? No. Did it go up? And then he did 3 innings practice. He said, "Oh, Frank, it didn't work. We did an interview." Started going through his numbers. And I said, "Well, how was your last pitch or your last few pitches?" And he said, "Let me look at the numbers. Oh, wow. My speed didn't drop off. What does it normally drop off? 2 to 3 miles per hour.
Wow.
You didn't have the drop off. Is that something that helps you in a game to not have drop off in inning 4, 5, 6 when they have to pull you out, maybe go another couple innings?" He's like, "Yeah." So, was it successful or was it just not based on his expectation? The other interesting thing is people equate more energy with jitteriness. But instead, the opposite actually happens. And people often say that they can't describe it. It's a calm sensation, yet more energy and an eagerness, kind of like in a flow state or in the zone where you just feel like you can dominate. And we hope to be able to do more research to kind of prove that out. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm a downhill skier, so I was just thinking, as you were talking about motocross, I used to race motocross as well, and that gets you into a flow state, and you need to be very careful about looking in advance to get into a turn or jumps or bumps or rhythm section, anything.
So our motocross guy took it, and he took it on a Tuesday, and he loved it so much. He's like, "Can you FedEx it to me for my last race of the season?"
Yeah.
He took it, and he won the whole shot. Now he sometimes wins the whole shot every 5 times, but he won the whole shot that time by a bike's length.
Yeah.
And he felt that the dropping of the 3, 2, 1, he was out there, found the lines, and he won it
because it wasn't jittery. Right.
Not jittery. So not a now it's complementary with caffeine. People say that it helps, but it's not a jittery caffeine feeling. It's a calm. The energy is just there. So they're lifting weights and they're
more
not
controlled,
expecting it.
directed.
Sometimes we find in cyclists that their breathing increases in an unexpected manner. And what we found there is that their legs might be moving faster, so their body's thinking, well, I should breathe more to compensate for it. And we've told them, just by warning them about it, it was fine. They were able to relax into it, like meditate into it, kind of like breathing in a paper bag, and they were, fine after a couple minutes.
That's awesome. It's really cool. Okay, so let's just kind of wrap up the discussion with where folks can find the Ketone Ester. KetoneAid.com is the website, but when will it be available potentially?
Well, if you had asked me in March, I would have said in 1 month. So, there's always something, some hiccup, something that slows it down, or the price. But we're hoping to do a Kickstarter within the next couple of weeks, where we will pre-sell a batch of it. And again, hopefully at a price that is competitive with the D version of the Ketone Salts.
Awesome.
And likely be selling them in a half-liter version, because we don't want people just taking one drink and being done with it. If you're committed to it, we want you to have a process of easing into it, testing yourself, and seeing how it works for you.
Cool. That's fantastic. And then let's finish up on testing. So a lot of people that are new to keto, or they want to test to see if this meal kicked them in or out of ketosis, whatever. You mentioned like your 30 minutes, 90 minutes. What's some good time frames?
So you can test it at the 15-minute mark, 30-minute mark, and then at the hour, and then 2 hours later you can see if it's worn off. If you're exercising, it's going to wear off much quicker. Again, with the ketone meters, there's the Nova Max, there's the Precision Extra, and then there's a new one now called Keto Mojo, which are $1 strips. So the meter costs a little more, but the strips are a lot less. So you can test them more frequently. But it's also beneficial to test your glucose as well, to see if the number has dropped too low. And if the number is too low, or you feel lightheaded, go grab a handful of nuts, some food, or even carbs if you think that you need, to get that back up.
Yeah, awesome. So why do ketones drop glucose? What is that?
That gets beyond my pay grade.
Complex mechanisms.
Yeah, I don't understand exactly why that does that. So I don't like to talk about things that I don't know ironclad.
Yeah, I know you've had a connection with Dr. Veach for a number of years. A lot of people have really admire his work for helping to help us to better understand how ketones work in the body and so forth. What's one gem, one pearl that you've learned from him that you want to share with folks?
Right. So my connection to him is he's my wife's godfather. So 2 years ago, he was telling me about the Ketone Ester and how he wanted to make a tanker car full of it and a spout in the end where people just line up and drink it. And I said, no, it won't work like that. No one will believe you. You have to do the proof of concept. And that's what I'm doing right now, is having the Kickstarter, proof of concept, and then we can scale it up, bring the price down. But what I've learned from him is just better understanding this actual molecule of the ketone monoester, D-beta-hydroxybutyrate, D1,3-butanediol, how it's such an elegant, perfect solution, how instead of binding it to a salt, you're actually binding it to 1,3-butanediol, which also makes ketones, the double whammy. So instead of moving your ketones, from 0.3 to 0.6, you can go from 0.3 to 5.0, and you just hit, 7.6.
Yeah.
So that has just, blown my mind once I fully grasped and better understood what it is.
Right. That's amazing. Cool. Well, I wish you the best of luck. Thanks so much for sending me the samples and talking on camera and stuff like that. So KetoneAid.com. So would the Kickstarter link be on the website?
Yeah, so you can sign up right now to put your email address, and we're going to be pre-announcing people that have signed up first about exactly when the Kickstarter is going to occur, or Indiegogo. And then we'll have different tiers. People that want to have it immediately, people that are willing to wait for the second batch, and then the third batch, and then hopefully be able to get the price down to comparable to the D ketone salts.
And it will always be in a liquid format.
Always liquid format,
okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Which is fine. I think it's easier to. Sometimes the powders are good, but if you're like traveling or in a race, how are you going to do that?
Well, the traveling's harder with the liquid, right? Because you have to have a certain size. So we are keeping that in mind. But the warning again, the taste. If your expectation is a burnt tire tequila, then it's going to taste lovely. But if you're expecting a Gatorade, and you haven't been warned, you're going to be like, oh, what's that?
It was better the second time around because I kind of knew what I was going after.
Yep.
So the first time was like, you said tequila, but then it was a slightly different taste. Like it was pungent like that. But anyway, it's really
we're trying to name it right now. So if you have any ideas, we've got burnt tire tequila, schoolyard dirt, so nasty grapefruit. So if you have any ideas, please submit them.
Well, it's good. You're managing people's expectations so they're not, Frank, really appreciate
one last thing I can say on this. I've actually told people that are if you're on a ketogenic diet and you've been trying to get your friend on a ketogenic diet, but they can't get over the hump, I've actually said, have them try the drink one time. Have them experience what it is to be in a high state of ketosis, and then say, never take the drink again. Just go back to the diet.
Yeah.
And
it's a good crutch to get them there.
15, 20 minutes, once you feel that experience, then it's worth the motivation to get over that hump.
Change your diet.
But otherwise, so the diet is key and paramount, and then the ester can just take you to that next level.
Yeah, I think that's, I personally recommending the salts, because this is not yet available. That's been my shtick for the salts, is use it as a bridge to feel what it may be like to be in ketosis. Then people, once they feel the benefits of exercise or fasting or meditation, they're willing to do it. So you can do, kind of circumvent the work via the exogenous ketones, then you can make those lifestyle changes. So I think that's brilliant. Awesome, Frank. Really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.